Hello, welcome to another edition of A Lot of Help. I'm your host, James Lott Jr. I'm a certified life coach and a human. I'm saying that because we're talking human behavior and relationships. And this is a thing I can talk about all day long. And I have somebody who's a behavioral specialist, and she has let me make sure I read some of the things she has to offer. Digitally, she has the 30-day emotional cleanse series. She has a 10-week boot camp that she does also. I know right now you can't do it right now, obviously, the thing. She has a podcast called Deal With It. Like that. And I'm just so happy to have you on my show today as we're both coming from our homes. Tracy Crossley, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm actually going to ask you, how are you doing with all of this social distancing, safer at home, shelter at home? How are you doing?
It's really interesting because I've been asked that question a lot lately, and I ask myself that question too. I feel like I'm doing well. I work from home as it is. And so that part of it isn't necessarily a problem. But the issue, I think, for me has been, where do I focus? So I tend to try and focus on the fact that I have some fear. I'm okay with that. But that I really want to be curious about what's coming. I want to be curious about life. I want to be open to opportunity because I also believe through crisis, there's always opportunity. So I really try my best to be there.
I always say, oh my God, I say that all the time. I always say that sometimes through tragedy and crisis, great things are born. They
Yes.
come out of it. So there's things, and right now I'm seeing in my creative community, they're really figuring out how to put on productions from their homes using the resources like Zoom. I wish I had stock in Zoom. Why did I get stock in Zoom before this happened? Um,
Well, that's really funny because who knew? The other thing is that
yes,
bidets are doing very well. Who
yes,
knew 2 months ago bidets were going to do well?
right. Why didn't we know this ahead of time? But I'm seeing the creativeness of people to put out content like I am, and just kind of, and it's been beautiful. And so now we're seeing new ways of things that are kind of happening that may stick around after we get to some semblance of normalcy. I always feel like this is the temporary
Right.
normal right now, not the new. But I like also you said it's okay to have some fear, and I have some fear too. I've been home 16 days as of this broadcast, as we're filming this. I've been home 16 days, and I see anybody else except for my brother who lives in the other room across the house. But I have not been out, not to go to the store, not to anything. I have been home the whole time. So I take it seriously, and I know eventually I'm gonna have to go out to get something at some point, but right now I don't have to, and I'm like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I've gone to the store, but it's actually been a couple weeks since I've been to the
There
store.
you go.
But it makes you really think about it and go, do I really need to go to the store? Or can I just order something or just
Yes.
live with what I have, right?
It also looks at your wants and needs columns. I would like to have some ice cream. I think I want some ice cream, but do I really need the ice cream? Probably I don't need it. I want it. If I don't eat ice cream, will I melt into a puddle? No, that's going to happen.
Right.
So it's just a choice of like, well, you should stay home and only go out when you need to. I don't need the ice cream. Like, I don't really need it. So I've been looking at that a lot too, of just kind of the things I don't really look at. I mean, normally just when I was going to go get it, I was going, I go get it. So now it's like making me really question, what can I live with? Like you just said, what can I live with? You know,
Right. Right.
great
Yeah.
thing. So I want to
Yeah.
get straight into this conversation, and I'm going to say a statement that I believe, and we're going to make the starting point off of this. I know you're a trained professional. I always feel, in my opinion, that boys, are raised anorexically emotionally.
Okay. And I would say that's true. And I would also say it's not just men and boys.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. At least with
Please
the people
expand.
that I work with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please expand. Yeah.
So people that I tend to work with have insecure attachment issues. Are you familiar with what? Okay. Yes. All right. So I tend to work with both men and women. And I find that there's a similarity because it's an emotional behavior issue. And it's not necessarily a male or female or heterosexual or gay or anything. It is a human issue. And I tend to find that there's a lot of people that were raised with parents who obviously didn't have self-awareness, who were going by what society says, oh, the child should be quiet, never heard. But they're
Yeah.
also, right. And there was also like a lack of attention. There's so many different things that I could go into as far as all the different things that affect a kid growing up. But I find it's both male and female. And it's really interesting because I work with people that are also, I think, highly sensitive, emotionally sensitive. And yet they have these walls up because they have a lot of fear of being someone else or actually being themselves. So that's something that I run into, and that's really the work I do.
From the therapy that I went through, and therapy is fine, folks. There's nothing wrong with therapy. I always talk about that. I have therapist friends, therapists on my show. I think therapy has saved my life over the years. Once I had my breakthroughs, I found for me, words do matter. And I found, like I'm saying, no, man, it's just words, just words. And I realized in the deep work that I was doing, you know this, I mean, already, for boys, you're the man of the house. Stop being a sissy. Put your big boy pants on. All these phrases that we're used to hearing all the time, even in like entertainment, you hear it in movies and things. Like that stuff really did affect me for a long time, girl. It really did. Crazy.
I can see where it would, because I think that for most of us, we don't realize that level of shame of being who you are, which is different than all the things you're being told, that you really never get to own your feelings. You never really get to own your choices. And then you're always second guessing yourself, and you're never feeling confident unless you've done it a million times and you've gotten everybody's approval. But that's not really the way to live either. But it's what most of us do. And we don't realize that makes us unhappy because we're not really living the life that truly belongs to us.
That's true. Actually, you're saying about the men and women, that there is a misconception that women are naturally can access their emotions better than men. That's not true, is it? Come on, she's shaking her head.
No.
If you're listening to this podcast, go to the YouTube channel, see her shake her head as I'm saying that statement. So come on, Tracy, talk about things. I fell into that for a long time. That women are easy. Thinking it's sex emotion easier than men.
It's such a bunch of BS. It really is, because to me, we live in this society where we want to bash men or make men the bad person in the relationship, and that's not necessarily true. Again, it's a human issue, because if I'm dealing with gay people, you're dealing with two people of the same sex, right?
Yes.
And I deal with both two females and two males, right? And you have the same sort of issues in those relationships that you do in heterosexual relationships when it comes to the accessing of emotions. I work with people who are shut down emotionally because it became unsafe as a kid. When they become unsafe as a kid, you go into your intellect and then you start strategizing and you go, oh, I don't want to get in trouble, or I don't want to be abandoned, or I don't want to be unloved. I want to get attention, right?
Right.
So you're thinking, and that's what takes over. And so we go through our lives using our brain rather than our feelings. And then we're wondering, why do I feel anxiety? Why do I feel cut off? Why am I distancing myself from a partner I say I love? Why am I not dating? Why am I afraid to date? So that's a big part of it.
There's also this phrase that I'm just realizing that you're making all this stuff come up for me, which is that's what you do. I mean, I love that. But the phrase you always hear, think with your head, not with your heart. I'm talking to more people nowadays who are saying you should come from your heart. Obviously, it informs your head. I mean, it's please.
So you can't feel with your head.
No.
Your head, and first of all, so how would you know how you feel? Your head is interpreting your feelings, but most people are so cut off again from their feelings that all they're feeling is a reaction to a story they have in their head about what is happening, which may not even be happening. And that's a big problem, because to access your emotions is not the whole, oh, my heart is going to hurt me. Your heart is part of who you are before your conditioning. To me, it's just the authentic self. So if you can't learn to trust that person, then what are you going to do? You're going to try and trust other people, what they tell you, and then you're unhappy and things don't work out how you want. And then you sit and blame yourself, you blame them, you're blaming everybody. And that doesn't even take you out of the pain you're in either.
Yeah. I always think, when you're born in love, right? You're just a being that comes out. You don't know nothing about just maybe the love of what you were in the womb or whatever, what you're feeling. And then that's it. And then you learn everything else, obviously, right?
Right. Exactly. And the thing is that you can unlearn it too. That's the beauty of it. See, and that's the work I do, is to help people break down their conditioning so that they can live a life from love, from happiness, knowing what internal peace is. Because when you're always having to perform or please or be perfect or do these things that you think are going to get you validation, AKA love, and you stop doing those things, you might think, oh my gosh, what's going to become of me, or who am I? But the truth is, you become you, and you stop really caring so much about the approval because it's you. And one other thing I will say to that too is that a lot of us don't honor our feelings, right? We do not. We expect other people to honor our feelings, which makes no sense, because if I'm not honoring my feelings, why do I expect you to do that and you to take care of it?
Right. I agree with that. And I've learned, I said it doing through therapy, that, you know, my feelings are valid, and that I'm harder on myself than anybody else could ever be, so to speak. I mean, I'm the one beating myself down and saying, you know, things and I mean, I'm not loud, but in my brain saying things like, well, James, you shouldn't feel that way. You're too smart to feel that way. James, you shouldn't do that. Like, why am I talking to myself like that? Like, why am I beating myself down? And it's like,
Right.
but it's also like a thing of, well, before anybody else does it, no, see, I know who I am already, so you can't do it to me. It's a wall too, isn't it? It's a mechanism to kind of, like, it's always saying, like, I'll make fun of myself before you do it, kind of thing, right?
Right. Right. So, but it's patterns that we've had since childhood. So a
Yeah,
lot of this is on autopilot. And so you
yeah,
have to have, right? You have to have the awareness to even know, okay, what is happening inside of me? Why is my relationship screwed up? Or why have I been single for 20 years and, not dating, or I date and nothing ever goes anywhere? A lot of times we don't see ourselves as a common denominator, and then we're blaming the other person. Oh, there's no good men, there's no good women, there's no good anything, right?
I know folks are like that, where it's always somebody else. I'm like, the
Yes.
common denominator is you. So I don't know what's going on there, but it's a little fishy to me. This leads into what I want to ask you. When you're in dating, or where you're dating somebody, or newly dating somebody, getting to know somebody, how do you distinguish between red flags and what I call white flags during away too soon, possibly, or a red flag being something that really you should look at? I mean, how do you kind of determine that if you are in a mindset where you're kind of broken, like you're still kind of like figuring stuff out for yourself?
So, one of the things that you have to learn about yourself is that you cannot think about things and decide from thinking about things. You have to go have experiences, because experiences are what are going to show you, yes, this is what's going to happen, or no, this isn't what's going to happen. But a lot of times we sit and we think and we want to have the perfect answer and the perfect strategy. But for me, when it comes to dating, and what I usually tell people, and this comes from my own experience too, but what I usually tell people about dating is, you've got to learn to be connected to yourself. A lot of times you go on a date and you're so focused on the other person that you're not even realizing if you're having a good time. You're too busy sizing, right? You're too busy sizing them up. You're too busy trying to figure out, is this person going to hurt me? Is this person a match? Do I have chemistry? Blah, 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 blah. And that doesn't really do anything. It's, how about connecting to yourself and going, do I feel good here? Do I feel like I'm having fun? Am I having fun? Oh, I'm having fun. Am I smiling? Oh, I am smiling. Like, we don't even notice this stuff.
Oh,
But
it's
if we
true.
did, right, you could go, oh, I'm having a good time. Okay, then I'm going to go and do this again with this person if that's what works out. A lot of times, though, we're already at the, oh, do I want to take this person home to meet my
Yeah,
mother?
yeah,
Or do I want to run for the bathroom and never come out and climb out the bathroom window on the date, So we don't give it a chance, because a lot of times you can sit with somebody and you don't know what's triggering you especially when you're wanting to run from them. It's, why do I want to run from this? And it's never, by the way, because you think they're an axe murderer. It's
right.
that you're wanting to run because they're triggering something in you that makes you feel uncomfortable. But it could be your own feelings of not wanting to get close to somebody.
Yeah, I know. 'Cause I know for me in the past, I remember doing things where I brought everything to the date, so to speak. Everything was in, like, everything from the first time I dated to like the last person I dated, all came with me. And I know, and I'd accept, of course, that comes with you. Like I said, experience, it comes with you. But like, I really brought it, and I wasn't present in the date. You just triggered that when you said it to me. There were times when I was there, and I was like, I probably could have had a better time if I had just calmed down. I mean, I wasn't like, I was calm talking to the person, but like, I was so busy interviewing them and trying to get all the information. Because I know people are not trusting, aren't they? They're so distrustful. I mean, it is hard at first, right? I mean, because you want to see if they're decent.
Well, here's the thing though, and this will help with trust, okay? Most of us, there's two things with trust. One is that we inevitably are afraid of disappointment. Nobody likes to experience disappointment, but it's really about trusting yourself to emotionally be resilient to handle disappointment. That's number one. Okay. So if you can trust yourself with that, cool. The other thing is, and this is a big one, and I mean, this is in any part of your life too. Most people don't trust themselves, right? They're always second guessing themselves because they have a criteria, and who the heck can live up to half the criteria most of us set for ourselves, right? So we don't see it, but a great way to be aware of it is if I say I'm going on a diet as an example, and 5 minutes later I eat a hot fudge sundae, my words and actions aren't matching, are they? No. How are you going to trust somebody, meaning you, whose words and actions don't match?
Right.
So you
Right.
can't trust that. You can't, because, and we don't realize that we'll say things and then we do the opposite half the time.
That's true. Oh my goodness. But we're so busy pointing it out in everybody else who does that we go, wait a minute, I'm doing it also. Like, I just told you I'm trying to do low sodium and I bought fries with extra salt on. I mean, like, that's kind of like, that makes no sense. They were good. Yeah, I did it. I had fries with extra salt. And he just told me all day about how you have high blood pressure. Like, it's like, it makes no sense. But if someone else does it, we're the first to say, well, look at her. She's eating those fries. She should be eating those fries. Like, it's like, we're so quick to bounce back off. So I guess I hear what you're saying is just that, just don't come with everything to the first date. Just sit there and try to be present and enjoy the date. And I guess the natural flags, whether one will come up, right? That's the best guess, right?
They're gonna come up because usually we ignore the flags. So
Yeah,
I know if you're sitting there talking to someone, as an example, and they start talking about their ex and they're pissed off about it, you're going to have a reaction to that. You're going to notice, wow, I'm reacting to that. That doesn't feel good because, hey, if I continue dating this person, that person's probably going to be talking about me in the same way, at some point, right? But it's really about, you notice it. If you're connected to yourself, notice your reactions. Oh, wow, that doesn't feel good. Or they're saying something like, you want to have kids and they don't want to have kids. Those are obvious things. But a lot of times what happens if there's chemistry, people will say, what red flags? I didn't see any red flags. Where are the red flags?
I always say you believe people at face value most of the time. They tell you something and show you something. A lot of times it's true. I had to learn that also. That it's just like, don't try to do this thing where, well, maybe they didn't mean it that way. Or, one day once we're together for like 5 months, then he'll want kids or she'll want kids or she'll change their mind. That's common. I'm sure that's common, isn't it?
That is very common, the maybe someday hope fantasy BS, because that also doesn't happen. That's the other thing when you want to date, stay in reality. The reality is you're on a date with someone, you have no idea where this is going to go or if it's going to go anywhere. And so you've got to be in the moment. And that's another thing. You can't enjoy things when you're not in the moment. When you're in fantasy land already, how are you there? You're not there.
Right. That's a trip. I always also wonder, people who don't date for a long time and they decide, I've run across that a couple of times. When was your last relationship? Oh, about 5-6 years. When was your last 10 years? I'm like, you've been single the whole time. I mean, so should we be cautious? I mean, every time it's happened, it's been something bad. Obviously, something that never worked out. But I'm just curious, are there people who just don't date? I mean, I don't know what's that about?
Well, there are people that don't date. I mean,
Yeah.
I can give you so many examples of so many different scenarios. I've had a few clients who had not been dating and hadn't dated for years, and they were still hung up on somebody from 5-10 years ago, or they hadn't gotten over that last relationship. And so there's something to, if they're working on themselves and they're aware, hey, you know what? I have a lot of fear, because it comes from fear. So I have a lot of fear. And I realize that I've had trouble wanting to move on from this relationship or even date because I'm afraid of getting hurt. I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid that something's going to happen to me. And therefore I'm always blocking any opportunity to date. Then that person has to make a choice. And it's not to say they can't. It's like that old thing where, if you were single for decades and then people would go, oh my God, they're a spinster, or there's something wrong with them.
Yes.
But we don't live in that society anymore. We live in a society where, starting in the late 60s, 70s, you had women going off to college on a regular basis. You had women having careers. You had everybody's having careers, living together, getting engaged, breaking up, moving in, breaking up. So
Yeah.
there's all sorts of, there's all sorts of different things that have happened because our society has changed. It's not 1950 anymore.
We're living longer too. I know that back then we weren't living as long, so everything was kind of faster on some level, seemingly faster. But I bet back then for us, it seems fast. Like it was like, oh, well, yeah, by 18, 19 years old, you got married. 20 years old, you had your kids. By 45, 50, you were a grandparent already. Like, and, you died at 60 or whatever. Like, now we're not living like that anymore. We're living a long time. I mean, I got a grandmother who's 96. She's still kicking.
Wow.
She's
Wow.
still kicking, and gets on my nerves all the time. But that's great. But I mean, but it's one of those things that we're living longer, and I think we don't have to do this rush stuff. I know there's instant gratification that goes out there, and we're now shorter attention spans and all that stuff. But relationships, let me ask you this: relationships really haven't changed, even though society has changed, how we date has changed. But isn't the basics of relationships still basically the same this whole time?
Well, yes, no.
Or has it changed?
Okay, so yes and no. I mean, because you look back in what is it, the 1800s and before that, when everything was pretty agricultural, and so you'd marry someone if you weren't in love with them, kind of a thing, right?
That's true.
Like,
Right.
great, I'm going to have 10 people working on my farm because I'm, I'm marrying this person to do that, right?
That's true.
So I think the idea of being in love and getting married is not necessarily a new concept, but that's why people really do it. Most of us aren't in arranged marriages. Most of us aren't getting married because we're going to have a team of people working on the farm. So what it really comes down to is, though, relationships in and of themselves are either healthy or unhealthy. And that's the bottom line. So, and they've always been that way, either healthy or unhealthy.
Okay. Then I like that. Okay, that kind of answers my question on some level. That it seems like they would say it was a different time period. Like, well, no, that was still bad. I mean, like it was maybe a different time period, but the basics of a bad relationship is a bad relationship. Right? I mean, that's just kind of.
I think so. But I was going to say the other part of it is, with insecure attachment issues, right? And I think those have been around probably since the beginning of time, because most parents did not get a guidebook on how to actually raise a kid and give them that, right? So I think that with insecure attachment and the way our society is, I think that sometimes in relationships, people may treat their partner like they're more disposable, like in the unhealthy ones. Oh, I'll just get rid of this person, or I'll go on to the next one, because they think it's the other person. And then they have no self-awareness to go, hey, it's me.
Yeah.
And the other person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It takes two to tango, obviously, but people are afraid to, or just choose not to see their parts. Because I mean, I ain't doing anything wrong. I mean, I'm like, they did me wrong. I mean, it's the whole, it was done to me. Why is it happening to me? Why me? And even in all parts of life, you have to kind of go back and go, wait a minute, well, why not you, so to speak? But like what went down? And not necessarily that you're a bad person because you did blank, blank, and blank to be a part of it. Just that, well, what did I do in this situation?
Right.
Right in the middle of it.
Right. Exactly. So, the thing is, if we were taught self-awareness as small children, right?
Yeah.
Life would be totally different, because then you would be aware that you're the common denominator, or aware of what you start to create. Because a lot of times people complain about the drama in a relationship, but again, they're not seeing their part. They're thinking, oh, I'm perfect, I'm good. And you're not. You don't realize what you say, what you do, how you are. A lot of times people are creating distance. The thing is, most human beings crave emotional intimacy, yet do everything they can to block it.
God, isn't that crazy? You're so right about that. It's so crazy. So a lot of times, though, we are mirroring our parents' relationships, aren't we? A lot of times, what we see growing up, don't we?
Yeah, because there are models, and in some regards, there's certain things, like when you're raising kids. I don't want to raise my kids like my parents raised me.
Oh, yeah, I was the opposite of mine. I was the opposite of mine, openly. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So you get that, but it's the relationship itself. You don't realize that, hey, dad was the more powerful one, or mom was the more powerful one. And as a kid, a lot of times you want to grow up and go, well, I'm going to be seen as the powerful one. I don't want to be the one who's crying in a corner, or, whatever it happened to be in your household. So it really does come from there, but it's also, again, having the awareness. Are you happy like that? Because these people that raised you probably learned how to do this from their parents. And so nobody's really being authentic. And when you can actually get to a place of being authentic, you can have a much better relationship.
Well, I'll tell you, the phrase, and I've written about this in my blogs for years, the phrase that changed my life back about, I would say about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when I turned 40. Brene Brown on Oprah, I saw that statement. She said, forgiveness is giving up the hope the past could be any different. And when she said that, that unlocked something from the click happened. I always call it the click. It happened for me and got me into therapy, actually, and got me to work out. I had father issues. I was like, I had to work those out. And I remember I was like, that's what it was. I was born. I remember, everybody told me he was a doting father. I'm James Lott Jr. I'm named after him. Big thing. Then somehow when I got my memory at like 4 or 5, he wasn't around and things started happening. And so I was trying to get back to that point, I think, of that feeling of love when I was a baby. And this whole life I've been chasing after that and not seeing him for who he is. Almost like that whole thing about being present and why me, why you do this to me. And then when I got to therapy, I was like, oh, okay. And now I've forgiven him at this point. I actually had a chance to tell him I forgive him. But I started seeing my parents as adults, not as parents. That must be a common theme too, right?
I think so. It's like when you can see them as human beings that are fallible. They didn't get an instruction book. And that's where the true growth is, because when you first realize, okay, I have mommy or daddy issues, a lot of us just tend to stay in that blame and that victimhood, because as a kid, you are a victim. You don't have really any clue. And so as an adult, that's when you know you've grown, is when you can really just accept that your parent is a human being. And acceptance is, oh, I'm so not happy, or, ooh, this is so bad. It's, ooh, they're a human being and I'm not going to change them. And I have to accept not just the past, but the present too, that this is how they are. And that's where you actually grow. It's like, I accept my parents, and I've gone through, if you listen to my podcast at all, it's like, I have gone through, so many different things with them, but I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, yeah, they didn't do the greatest job, but whatever. I'm not sitting here a victim to it anymore.
Same here. I learned that. I just was like, at this point, again, I'll be 51 next month. I'm just like, how long am I going to hold on to it? How long am I going to hold on to it? And folks will hold on to stuff, and what they call it, make it their story. They make it their story, don't they? Their identity, that they were hurt. You're in your 40s and 50s and 60s. You're like still talking about how you were hurt from your parents.
Right. They haven't gotten over it. Yeah. And that's a lot, and that's a lot of people too, that they just don't want to get over it. I mean, turn on the TV.
Right.
Watch a movie.
Right.
Do a song half the time. A lot of people are just writing about their pain.
Actually, I do music, and I did write a song actually about my father. It's called Lost and Found. I wrote the song. It's gonna come out this year. But I wrote it because I was like, I feel I forgive him, but I feel I need to document that time that he left us. And so I did. And actually, it's a fun song. We did a song that had a serious message, but with an upbeat tune. That's kind of that was our twist on it. So that's all better after I did it. So it's kind of, so when you said write a song, I had to plug that, everybody. It'll be coming out soon.
That's great.
It's about relationships, right?
Well, it's not what?
It says about relationships, and that's what happened.
It's about relationships.
That's what it was. It was about a relationship that I had with my father. And I took those things into relationships. That's the problem. And this is what I used to do. I'm going to ask you a question about this too. I used to test people. I want to make sure.
Yeah.
But I realized later it was me being, it was detrimental to me. I was testing them, thinking I was testing them to see if they're worthy of me. But I was basically seeing if I was worthy of them. I realized that later. So that's something that's common too, right?
That totally is common, because again, it's focused on the other person. And if you really look at it, it's giving the other person control over your emotions, by the way. So when you're looking at, again, can I trust them? Are they going to be good? Are they going to be bad? And then this is the other part of it too. We don't even see how we helped create the situation that ends up sabotaging the whole relationship anyway.
Right. I mean, Tracy, here's the thing. It's like, okay, so you'll take care of all the bills. Okay. And then when you wake up 2 years later, you're like, how's the phone bill get paid? Or how does this get, like, all of a sudden you're looking for power all of a sudden because your relationship's dying down or whatever, something's happening. And you're like, we always do stuff with his friends. Why didn't I where are my friends? Like, what did I, like, and obviously you start waking up out of this haze, kind of like, because you're so busy thinking you're testing them to see and trying to make them, it's just, oh, it's so backwards. It's so backwards.
It is. It is. It doesn't work as a way to be happy or bonded to another person in a healthy manner.
I know, it's just like, so I mean, so basically, most of the stuff we've been talking about today, it starts with self-awareness. That's, I guess, that's the bottom floor, the foundation of everything. Is getting to a point of coming from center and then self-awareness, right?
It is. And then the next step is to be vulnerable enough to take responsibility for what you do and what you don't do, and to stop blaming the other person. You know, the other person's just like you in the sense that they have past experiences and they're going to get triggered, and it has really nothing to do with you. You're just the person triggering them. And you can always tell because it's always those bigger reactions. That means it's old stuff. And so when you can look at it from the perspective of, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for everything I say and do and think and feel, then you're an adult. You're an emotionally mature adult, and you will probably attract more emotionally mature adults who are willing to do the same thing. If you're in a relationship with someone and you're the one who goes, I'm going to take responsibility, a lot of times people will say that, by the way, and what they're trying to do is make it all okay. Okay, I'm going to take responsibility for everything you do and for what I do. And so then you won't leave, you'll stay, you'll do what I want you to do. But that's not the same thing as really taking responsibility for yourself and then making your choices from there. That means I got to be responsible because I'm the one making a choice. Like in a bad relationship, people are always, oh my God, I'm in this relationship. You're choosing to be there. You made a choice, right? That's your responsibility. So you do take on responsibility and you can change your whole life.
That's true. But we always put it on somebody else. Like, we gotta look at ourselves. And I'm always, I think, as an adult, I've always been trying to get to my center. Always. I mean, that's always kind of a place I've been trying to get to. And I feel like I'm there now, but I mean, it took me years to get there. I'm still always getting. I'm always educating myself. But it's like, I always believe it begins and ends with you, doesn't it? Everything begins and ends with you. I mean,
It does.
You know.
It does. Always. And that's the beauty of it, though, because then you're not waiting for the 12th of never, for someone else to change. And you know that, okay, if it's up to me, I can actually do something about it. So that's empowering rather than disempowering. If you're waiting for other people to change or life to change and cooperate or just send you who you think would work for you, you're going to be waiting a long time if you're not doing the work yourself.
Well, isn't that whole thing about, you are what you attract at any given time? And I recognize some of my relationships clearly represent that time period in my life. I'm like, oh yeah, I would never do that person again now. Like, of course you would, because at that time period, that's where you were. That's who you attracted. That's a true thing, isn't it? That's the thing there.
It is a true thing. And here's the other thing, along with, you attract where you are. It's that people mirror us. So it's not that we're twins. Right. It's that there's certain aspects of them that maybe you don't like, and even the things you do like that are mirrored in them. Like whenever somebody's going, oh, hey, we have common interests. Well, you guys are mirroring the common interests. Like, that's good. But then you want to point the finger and go, I don't like his or her temper, or I don't like how they handle their money, or I don't like this, or well, why don't you look at yourself? What is it triggering in you? And what is it saying about you? You may not have the same exact problem, but you have some kind of insecurity around whatever the problem is you think they have.
Yeah. One of the last things I want to ask, and I don't think I've ever asked this. I mean, I've interviewed so many therapists and all kind of stuff, and I never asked this before. And now all of a sudden it got loud all of a sudden. You guys, I'm trying to do a show. This is life at home. It's been very quiet, but I don't know why all of a sudden they're doing that. So I'm going to ask this silly question. We'll end this soon. You have to come back on. You're so good.
Thank you.
Can opposites attract?
Opposites can attract as long as there is a similarity there. You have to have you have to have common ground. I mean, you have to have common ground in life. Here's the thing. It's funny. I posted on my personal Facebook page about this morning and saying, we have far more in common with each other than we have that's different.
I thought,
and so, and if people could just focus on that, things would get better. But point is, when you're dating somebody and let's say they're an extrovert and you're an introvert, there has to be parts of them that also have some kind of introversion, and there's parts of you that are willing to get extroverted, right? So like somebody who likes to go out all the time and somebody who likes to stay in, there must be something that says, you know, I kind of want to go out once in a while, but I need somebody to sort of get me out to do it. It's those kind of things where there's a balance. But when it's one extreme or another and both of them are very rigid, then it's actually the rigidity that's the problem. I'm very rigid, it has to be my way. Well, sorry, you can't really have a healthy relationship being a rigid person anyway. So that answer your question?
That totally answers it completely. I was always curious about that. And I always feel, because I've dated people who are kind of opposite me, not fully opposite, but like opposite enough. It did work on some levels. Like there was like puzzle pieces, like it kind of like, oh, there's times I love being a homebody. I mean, you can tell I'm very extroverted. I love being a homebody. There are times I love being at home. So that worked. And there were times when they wanted something exciting. Well, I can offer that. I work in Hollywood. Come with me to a premiere. You know, but it was every once in a while. So it's like it did fulfill those things. And there was a lot of compromise too. Just a lot of compromise. And that was the key to the opposites thing. It was like, well, we have to understand, go back to understanding who you are, and then let them be who they are, and then finding some kind of.
Well, a lot of times when you have opposites, it's also that you have common values. You have a common view, right? Of what do you want the future to look like? And both pictures can fit into the same frame.
Yeah. I like that. I actually like that analogy. It can. You have a wall. Okay, both can fit on the wall. That's fine next to each other. That's
right.
Fine. The wall's there. I mean, it all can fit together. I like that. And I think that's true too. And I just remember a couple of them. I attract a certain type of person. I realized, oh, it's because I'm very outgoing. They like that. I'm outgoing. I'm bright. I have all these friends and stuff. And I like them because they actually calm me down. This is a great thing. They show me that it's okay to be at home, be in the garden, things like that. It's like, oh, I kind of like that. Okay. So that kind of helps it go that way. I like that. But I always wanted to ask that. I've never asked anybody that before. I always wanted to ask that. Do opposites can they really attract? And yes, they can. With reason.
They can.
Tracy, you are so good.
Right. I think that's with anything though,
Yes.
I will. I love it. It's been fun.
You are so good. You're so good. Because there's so many things we can talk about. I don't want to confuse people. I'll make sure they have what they have. So Tracy, tell them where they can find you on the social medias and the interwebs.
Okay, so you can find me at tracycrossley.com. All of my social media tags are there. You can find me Instagram, Tracy L. Crossley. Facebook, if you go facebook.com, it's /transformative coach. But you know what? You can also pop me in Google and you can find me there and everywhere.
You're like me. I would say just Google me. You'll find James Lott Jr. You'll find me. You'll find me in there. I know that's fine. But thanks for being on the show so much. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed this.
So I am James Lott Jr., certified life coach, and I'm for hire, of course, digitally, because we do things digitally. A lot of help is the website. That's 2 T's, not 1. And I'm also, this podcast is everywhere, trust me. It's like iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, Deezer. It's everywhere. When you see it, like and subscribe. Share it with anybody you think needs to hear this message or see this message. Please share it with them. And let them know that they can take a good list. They can listen to it. They can watch this. This will be on my YouTube channel, JLJ Media. Like, subscribe while you're there too. And where can you find me? Where all James Lott Jr.'s are sold, at James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms. Everyone, please stay safe and please stay sane during this crazy time.